Hello, this is Joe Sonona, and this is Coffee Talk with the Listing Pros and Realtors presented by Sonona Speak Seminars. And my guest this week is Brandon Tuttle from Sash Realty, all the way from Washington, Seattle, Washington. How are you, Brandon?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. New York is still cold and chilly. How is it going over there?
It's been all right. The last couple days we warmed back up. We had a weekend of rain, but the last 2 weeks we were in mid 70s, low 80s. So pretty good for everyone who thinks that it just rains all the time in Seattle.
Well, that's what I was about to lead off with, but it's not raining there, right? No April showers in Seattle. When is your rainy season? Or is there a particular time when it rains and it's just...
I mean, we've been pretty lucky right now. Normally we have a pretty wet spring. Summers are usually pretty dry. We might get maybe a day or two of rain a month during the summer. Winters are pretty rainy, and then falls are kind of hit or miss. Sometimes it's nice and sometimes it's rainy.
I see. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in real estate.
Yeah, so I've been in real estate for just under 7 months. I've always had a passion for real estate. I bought my first house when I was 20, and kind of grew to enjoy it more and more and more. Bought and sold several times over the last 10 years. But at the time I was enjoying my career in hospitality. And I loved it. I thought I was going to be a lifetime hospitality person, but COVID hit, and then the industry kind of crashed for a little bit. And then my position with the hotel was eventually eliminated. So I took the opportunity to get my real estate license, since that's something I've always enjoyed. And I haven't looked back.
Good for you.
Sometimes I wish I would have done it sooner. But I've always been a strong believer that things happen when they're ready to happen, and everything happens for a reason. So here we are.
Here we are. And in full disclosure, I just want to let our audience know, how did we meet, you and I?
Instagram.
Well, because this is a teaching show, and because we're trying to inspire agents like ourselves to get into the business, or agents like ourselves who are already in the business, we're trying to give them some facts about what we do, how we go about doing our business, and lend a little inspiration. So that's the basics or the basis of our show called Coffee Talk with the Listing Pros. And you don't have to be a listing pro, ladies and gentlemen, to be here on Coffee Talk. When I sought out Brandon, I did not know that he was only 7 months in the business. So he surprised me by telling me that just now. But that's okay, because you know what? It's so inspirational that here he was in another job, like you just said, and another profession, another career. And of course, like anything else with COVID has shaken all of our worlds upside down, and here we are.
Definitely.
So you enjoy business. You enjoy the business, obviously. You love the business. Good.
I love
What do you love about the business?
Mostly the people, interacting with different types of people, and just kind of helping people follow their dream of a home ownership, whether it's them being a first-time home buyer or selling their starter home and moving on into their next place to continue their family, or just moving into a bigger place for whatever reason they want to, or even just downsizing, whether they've reached retirement or they're just empty nesting and need to feel like they need a smaller place. It's just always kind of helping people follow their dream of what they want next in life.
That's great. Now, being that you've been in the business a short time so far, you've already listed 2 houses.
I've listed one pending now, and then I'm working on another listing that'll get listed the end of next month, and hopefully others to come from that. But I've mostly represented buyers in this crazy market.
Okay. What do you think your secret sauce is to listing real estate so far? I know it's kind of new, but you must have some sort of a secret weapon that you can divulge right here on Coffee
Yeah.
Talk.
I think for me, it just a lot of it comes from a natural, hospitable personality, being able to connect with the seller, and someone who kind of doesn't necessarily treat my clients like a transaction, but more so something for like the long term. Whether that's becoming close friends and hanging out and going to barbecues over the summer, or if it's just building that relationship so I can be that go-to person for them when they are either ready to move into their next place or refer their friends and family. So
I'm
for me, it's
glad
more
you
about
said
building.
it. I'm glad you said the relationship because that's all about, real estate is all about relationships, and a good friend of mine always says relationships over transactions any day of the week.
Yeah.
Tell me, what kind of technology have you discovered so far that you feel is a good marketing tool for listings besides
Um,
your basic MLS?
yeah. So for me, um, I mostly just use social media. My go-to things are right now are Facebook and Instagram. And then slowly, as I get into further and further into real estate, I have started to expand where I'll be taking stuff to. I'm in the process of building my own website right now, and working with a marketing company for social media marketing. And I'm also in the process of throwing around the idea of like TikTok and stuff like that to kind of branch out to a different audience, and just to continue that way. So,
Do you think that TikTok is a good, like I know what TikTok is obviously, but is there an audience of buyers in TikTok?
I don't know if it's necessarily the direct buyer and seller audience per se. It could be. There's certainly people that are in the market on there, I'm sure. But it's more so just to kind of help get the word out. TikTok is probably the trendiest social media platform right now. And so if it can go from one person, it's going to continue just to kind of get passed down and shared. So I think there's a huge opportunity with TikTok.
What advice would you give to a new agent like who's just coming in? I know you're coming into the
Mhm.
business, you haven't hit a year yet, but can you talk about your beginning struggles, your beginning challenges, and do you prefer, have you found that niche of listing versus, selling? Because you said you did a lot of buyer brokerage things.
Yeah.
Do you like listing versus selling?
Um, I think there's pros and cons to both of it. Um, I like listing and representing buyers as well. I don't necessarily think that I would have a preference one over the other. But as far as advice for people just getting into the game, I think it's the biggest thing is like being realistic. Time and time again, people just wanted to get into real estate because they think there's a ton of money to be made, which there is. There's a lot of potential to have money, but there's a lot of investment that goes into being able to make that money first. You have to invest in yourself. You pretty much get out of real estate what you put into it. So a lot of hours are put in when you want to kind of build your name and build your reputation. There's a lot of agents out there already that have done that. So it's a matter of you getting your point across to build that trust with people who already recognize names in the industry. I don't know how many
You
times
feel
I heard someone go,
intimidated by the people around you that have the most experience, or do you think that like you have what it takes to be that lister that people want to gravitate more toward you, and you know what I'm saying? Like
"Mhm,
I don't call it competition, I call it our colleagues in the business. But do you think like do you have a competitive edge over our colleagues in the business that makes you stand out as a lister?
I like to think I do.
Mhm.
I think there's always going to be that little bit of intimidation of getting that listing appointment and knowing that you're going up with people that have been in the industry for a lot longer, who have that proven track record, and stuff like that, but still having to convince that client or that potential client that I do have what it takes, and that I'll give it my all, and can reach out to my sphere and do marketing and stuff like that. For me, just because someone's been in the game for a long time doesn't mean that they have any advantage necessarily. We all study the same market. We all have the same resources. And to me, it's just a matter of what that agent is willing to put into it. And I'm full speed ahead.
Good for you.
Yeah. So
good for you. Breathe.
There's no breaks.
I always tell people, the water is not as cold as you think.
Mm-hmm.
Just go in there and full
jump in.
fledged. Absolutely. Tell me, if you had a piece of advice for an agent who has more experience than you, what would you, if you could just offer a little piece of advice to more of an experienced agent, someone who's been in the business 10 years, 20 years, what would it be? Just from your standpoint right now in your career.
I think it's just to kind of keep on investing the same amount of time that they put into it when they were new in the game. You can never get too comfortable and rely on just the referrals that are coming in. Referrals certainly help, and the longer you've been in the game, the more clients you've had, the more referral resources you have. But to me, like, if you want to reach your fullest potential, you can't just rely on that. So it's still important to market outside and continue to put in the same amount of time and effort that you did when you were first starting off.
Now, I know we're in the month of, by the time this broadcast goes on, it will be in May. But now going into May of 2021, what do you see a little bit different in your market of Seattle that you didn't see 7 months ago?
It just continues to rise and become this crazy market. Like, every month, at the end of the month for our team meetings at our brokerage, we always kind of recap. And every month we're like, okay, we're seeing record lows as far as inventory. And it's just trending that way. And it's like the month before, you never think that you're going to see anything lower as far as inventory numbers go. And it continues to prove us wrong. Price points are just continually breaking records up here.
Yeah.
In the county that I'm in, year over year, between March of 2020 and March of 21, prices increased over $100,000 median sale price for single family home and condos combined. So it's just absolutely nuts. And we have about 8 or 9 days of inventory on the market.
That's great to some degree, but things for a person who wants to list property. And is there a lot of strong, or a lot of our colleagues? Is there a lot of, are there a lot of agents in your area, market area?
A ton.
A ton.
And there always have been. Even like back in like 2007, 2008, around that time when the market had took a major downturn, there were a ton of agents. I bought my first house in 2010, and it was very hard for me to kind of find that agent who knew what I was looking for, just because there was so many to choose from.
Now, if you could turn around and tell that agent, without mentioning names, if you could tell that agent a little bit of advice, knowing what you know now, 7 months in, what kind of advice would you offer that agent?
Um, well, I wound up working with three. The first two,
Shame on you. You know better to work with a
was
buyer's
not my
agent.
decision to work with three.
Okay,
I've always
okay.
known that once you start working with an agent, you stick with that person because they're putting time and effort into
I'm
it.
just curious. I'm
Um,
just curious. Without, don't mention a
mhm.
gender. Don't mention anything like that because we want to, protect that person,
Yeah.
whoever he or she may have been, right? But do you think, just just thinking back, did you, were you offered buyer agency to work with as an exclusive client of theirs?
Um,
I'm
no,
just
and
curious.
I didn't
Okay, that's
sign,
number one. Okay.
which was kind of shocking to me.
And when you were go out and I'm kind of switching it up. Like
Mhm.
I'll go back to the listing, right? But I'm gonna switch it up. Now you had more inventory on the market to see,
Oh, a
right? Back
ton.
in 2010.
Hmm.
So when you were looking at as a customer, as a consumer, 2010, did you feel that those agents whose inventory you were looking at, did they properly market it the way it would come at you and just say, this is what I want to see?
Um, Back then I thought stuff was pretty well marketed, just as someone who didn't really know a lot about the industry. Um, but now looking back, um, and it's hard to say because that was also 10 years ago and the industry has changed so much.
It
And
certainly
technology
has.
and stuff as far as like photography skills and stuff like that have
Sure.
continued to just grow. Um, so like from a today's standpoint, it was an absolute terrible listing of the house that I bought.
Mm,
Um, Today I probably would have never bought that house.
okay.
Had it if it was just based on marketing. Um, I did love that house. My mom thought I was crazy when I was buying that house
How
because
old were you?
I was 20.
Okay. Oh, you were very young to buy a house back then.
I
That's
was, but
pretty
I took
good.
advantage of the market.
That's good. That's good. A lot of young people in your field would never have thought to buy a house back then.
No, they don't. And at the time, I was going to school full time. I was working 30-ish hours a week as a server at a restaurant down the street from me and living life. But as soon as I get an idea in my head, I have to make it happen. So I had the
Well,
thought of
that's
buying a
good.
house, and I wasn't going to stop until I was able to accomplish that.
They should all be as ambitious.
And that's kind of what I take into my career now of I'm going to continue to succeed and continue to essentially make my mark in the industry, and be that known person.
It's good. It's good. And speaking of that known person, we as realtors always take our fiduciary duties very serious. We work to a higher standard.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to ask you a question that I ask all my guests on this show, and that is, if you had to pick one of the fiduciary duties, if I spelled it out in an acronym of old car, and I know they're all important, but which one would you pick and why? So I'll spell it out: obedience, loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, accountability, and reasonable care. Which one would you pick, Brandon Tuttle, and why?
Um, I think for me, one of the most is, or most important, is confidentiality. Um, I think it's important to, I mean, there's so many things that we have to keep confidential when we're dealing with either a buyer or a seller. And it's important not to give away those details. There's a lot of tactics that agents on the other side will try to get you to kind of open-endedly spill the beans on maybe the max budget that a buyer is looking at being able to spend, just to kind of boost the offer price on a house.
That's spoken like a true buyer's agent, by the way.
If you're on the
I can
listing
tell you're a
side,
buyer's agent, more so. But no, I know. But you're breaking into all aspects of
Mhm.
the real estate profession, which is awesome, because every agent should try a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and see where their niche, takes them. Because right now you're in freshman year, so you're looking
Yep.
around at everything, and
Oh my
everything is
God.
so nice. Everything is throwing stuff at you, and when you become a sophomore in this business, you start saying, okay, now I want to do this a little bit more than I wanted to do that, and
Mhm.
and then by junior or senior, you think your doesn't stink, but
Yep.
no, it's a very, very good industry. It's a very good profession, our real estate profession, and a lot of people just don't know. They just don't know what we do, and
Yeah.
what the time, the effort, the dedication, the patience, the learning that never
Mhm.
stops. I was telling somebody this morning, you're onboarding, and onboarding is constantly ongoing.
Mhm.
There's that initial phase of onboarding, and then there's the permanent phase of ongoing. The ongoing education in our
Yeah.
field, where people, if they think this business is any easier to do, then they should have their head examined.
They're in for a
We
wake-up
should have
call.
our head examined for being here, but no, we're actually here to prove a point. And
Mhm.
you made the biggest leap of faith, and I want to commend you for that, because
Thank you.
you left an industry that was and is and will come again,
Mhm.
stable and essential to people, and you now are in a different career altogether, that you took a leap of faith, and it's very commendable. It
Thank
really
you.
is.
It's
Yeah.
definitely a change, going from knowing what my paycheck every 2 weeks is going to be to trying to figure out when my next paycheck will come.
Do you miss that part?
I do and I don't. It was always nice to have. It's certainly easier to budget, and everything like that. But the thing that I really do like working solely on commission for is it just pushes me to continue to be better. It pushes me to get out there and find that next buyer or seller, and makes me not want to stop.
Right.
So I do. It was nice having a steady paycheck, but at the same time, it's also nice having something to keep that motivation going and keep that fire lit.
Well, listen, you keep that fire lit, because it's going to keep you going and moving in the right direction. And you're one to watch. You really are. And I'm glad that we met on Instagram, because,
Oh yeah.
it shows, it shows that you got a presence now. And now
Yeah.
you have to do what you need to do with that presence in order to make it better, and
Definitely.
bigger. Yeah, you're a bright spot, and it's only gonna how would you say, uh, it's gonna roll over for you. Oh, I think you froze a little bit. I think. Hello, 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 hello. Oh my goodness, not at the end. Let's see if we can. Okay, I think we had some technical difficulties, but maybe he'll come back. If not, we'll pause, um, and we will just end our broadcast by saying thank you, Brandon Tuttle, for coming in from Sash Realty and all the way from Washington. I think we got a little bit of a cutoff on the connection. But I just want to thank you for being my guest, and I think you have a very strong career ahead of you. This is Joe Sonona with Sonona Speaks Seminars, and this has been another exciting episode of Coffee Talk Thank you, Brandon, again for joining me. Have a good day, everyone.